Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
So there I was, my first year of college. I was getting ready for spring break, right? And I'm in the bathroom and I see this toilet and I think, toilet, you deserve to have a firecracker put inside of you.
Oh, what did the toilet do?
It taunted me with its water and its turd that was sitting inside of it. And I was like, it would be hysterical to throw my waterproof firecracker in this.
Why do they make waterproof firecrackers? What do you need to light a firecracker in water for?
Because it's fun? I don't know.
Like, is it like in the middle of a lake, light this fire?
I don't know.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So I had fireproof firecrackers, and I think it needs to go in this toilet, and I'm literally getting ready to leave.
Yeah.
On spring break. And so I was just, in my mind, it was that youthful, like, ooh.
What did you imagine?
And water goes everywhere, and the turd explodes, and blah, blah, blah.
Wait, there literally was a turd? You put the firecracker in with a turd?
Yeah, there was a turd in that toilet.
What?
Totally.
This is such a college boy story. So you thought, I'm going to put a firecracker in, and the turd and the water are going to explode.
Made sense to this brain. So as I go in there.
Wait, how old were you?
I
like
was
19, 18?
Yeah.
Okay. That makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, I was 19.
Story.
Yeah.
Your brain isn't fully formed yet.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I decided to make this life-altering decision of throwing this in here, apparently. And I think I should just flush it down. It'd be even funnier because then water would blow up out of all the toilets. I don't know, like one firecracker, how I thought that could happen.
Oh, you thought every toilet would just gush water.
And with a hypervigilant background, usually I am like, I'm at that age trying to create cause and effect.
What the consequences could be.
Totally to survive.
Yeah.
Right? Making bad decisions that lead to more pain. But I put no thought into this. I was very much a 19-year-old. And so I decided not to flush it because something inside of me was like, do not flush that. And I was like, I don't know what this is, but it's telling me not to. Okay. So I just throw it in the toilet, which in retrospect, if I'd flushed it, it probably would have cracked a pipe and I would have been really effed in a really bad way.
Oh, I'm so glad you didn't flush it.
Yeah. So I threw it in there and all of a sudden it goes, boom. That's it.
Ugh. Anticlimactic.
Totally. Until the toilet fell off the wall.
Did you laugh?
I was like, ah! And then I took off running because my trunk was already packed. I don't know why I needed to do this right before I just drove off.
It actually sounds like you premeditated it the way the story goes. Like drop it and run.
Yeah, But it kind of was. It was like, well, I'm leaving. I think the thought process was, I'm leaving. No one will know. I'll be gone, well gone. And then they'll wonder like, what happened here? So I'm on my drive away and I get a phone call from my rat of a roommate. That's what you call someone who rats you out, a rat. And he was like, they already know, come back here. You might as well just own up to the toilet. And I was like, what toilet? What do you mean? And
wait, you had to come back so you couldn't leave for
Oh, no, I did not come back for that. I hung up that phone. But when I did return.
After spring break.
I was willing to fight it in the sense of just lie my way through it because no one saw me do it. So you can't prove. But I was like, I'm just going to own this.
That's good.
So as I'm sitting there across from the dean of students, he was like, Aber Hall, 8th floor, Aber Hall. A lot of idiots up there. And
this is what he told you.
And he was like, looking at your records, you're not one of them. So
Aww.
You did this? Yep. Okay. Well, you're going to pay for it and quit being one of the idiots. And then in the school paper was something jolted John headline, and the toilet, you saw a picture of the toilet and it shattered on the ground, and it was newsworthy in college.
Did they give you credit on the newspaper?
I don't
did
remember.
Anyone high five you? Were they like,
I can't remember.
Or was
if my
anybody like,
name-
why would you go after a toilet?
I think it was some notorious suspect blew up a toilet in Aber Hall. Anyways, today I want to talk about decision making because that was not a great decision. You know, it wasn't a terrible decision. I've made a lot of terrible decisions.
As we all have.
I've also been paralyzed over decision making, and little things have been super high stakes. And also, I've had really good decision making where I followed something inside of my gut that felt right, and it led into some pretty miraculous stuff when I got out of my head and I got out of my fear. Yeah. So there's a spectrum of decision making that people are on.
Yeah. I think this is a really good topic, and there's so many different pieces that come into play over this. And so should we jump in?
Yeah, I'd love to. Let's do it.
I wanted to start with part of decision making is trusting yourself.
Totally.
Part of decision making is knowing yourself. And part of decision making is what your ultimate belief about life is.
Yeah.
So some people ultimately believe things will work out for me. Some people ultimately believe if I'm not perfect, things won't work out for me. A lot of decision making comes from the lens of our childhood.
Yeah.
So if you're in your childhood and it's a highly punishing culture, if you do something wrong and you get whooped, or if somebody misunderstands you and you get
judged, you have aggressive responses, intensity,
or your parents
disconnection, abandonment. It can feel like our childhood can create a sense of high stakes around any decision making.
Yes. And even I think like even if you had a childhood where it wasn't like that, but you did at one point in your life make a decision where everybody hated you, or everyone turned against you. And I know that that's happened to so many people. It can begin to create a narrative that decisions are high stakes
and cause pain.
And
they're not actually something that's part of daily life that you learn, you grow, you develop from it. There's oftentimes not this concept of grace inside of decision making, that I had a pure intent, but there was problems that happened, but it's going to be okay. It's going to get worked out. There's a lot of doomsday around it.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think what would be, just to set this up, and then we'll go into the different things, but if everybody in decision making could believe every choice is redeemable.
Yeah.
And I'm powerful enough that I can heal and grow and learn from every decision. It would help take so much of the pressure off.
And that others can heal and grow. Now, I understand that some decision making, you think about people who act out violently and make really destructive stuff like that, but still, that doesn't mean, hey, this is a green light for going and making super destructive decisions. Like, it'll all work out. I'm going to be really destructive.
Totally.
But when we've made chains of painful decisions, there is still a redemption that's available to even I was thinking about drug addicts that are really in a bad place behind our building over here consistently. And I think but that's still not unredeemable.
Yes.
Right there. There's still an opportunity for encounter that heals and transforms that person's life.
I think it's important. I remember when we were learning about our belief systems and how much our belief systems impact us. We've read this story about this guy who was homeless, and he started reading a book about how gratitude changes things. And so he only owned a pencil. Yeah. He was reading a book from a library. And he decided to start being thankful for that pencil every day. Thankful
for everything that it could do.
Yes. And I just remember that thought of okay, so really, if you make a decision that causes a lot of chaos and a lot of pain. Yeah. We're not saying you should do that. Yeah. But if you have the awareness, God wants love and redemption and hope for every human at every moment. There's always an invitation. Yeah. Whether you believe in God or not, I guess we could say it without God, the same thing. There is a chance on this planet for you to be able to make choices that change your future. So
the end story of that guy is that he eventually went on to be a multimillionaire and an inspirational speaker and stuff like that, and came out of homelessness. Yeah. through actually connecting to gratitude and actually changing his belief system.
And finding the power he did have in that circumstance.
In every circumstance that we're in. So I want to go back, and I think that's a good thing. We need to talk about the power that we have in every circumstance that we do create or find ourselves in. But I look at my childhood because I think it'd be really good for me to share some of my experience with decision making.
Yeah.
So we've talked on here before. We've been very open with my parents and about some of the intensity that was inside of my household, both with my mom and my dad, and the consequences. There was a lot of consequences to poor decision making. It meant that I got in a lot of trouble, and that felt very painful, the trouble that I experienced. And so I was really always trying to make right decisions. But above and beyond that, I remember having a lot of aggressive, intense demands at making decisions. So as a young kid, it'd be like, what do you want? Do you want to do this or that? Do you want to do this or that? Tell me, what do you want? What do you want? Hurry up. Tell me, come on. And so there was this anxiety with how fast I had to make it, coupled with the anxiety of the idea that if I make the wrong decision, this is going to lead to a whole lot of pain. So I remember as my life began to move forward, I was deeply paralyzed at any major life decision because I thought, what if I do this wrong? What if I make God angry? For me, there was a spiritual element of religion because there was a mixture of a very wrong perspective of who God was based on my childhood. And it was always like, even if I make a good decision, what if God didn't want me to make this decision?
Oh, absolutely.
And what if he gets angry? And what if he punishes me? And what, well,
and then it's the cosmic punishment. Like if I make the wrong decision, then that means nothing good will ever happen to me again. Because the God of the universe will cause everything to go against me.
And I remember I sat down with this, and I may have shared this one time before, but I sat down with this esteemed minister from our church that was very valued. And I was talking to him, it was in my maybe third year of college out in LA when I was in film school. And I was like, Donovan, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what God wants me to do. I'm trying to figure out what my next steps are. And he says to me, and this was one of the most powerful moments I probably had, powerful pieces of advice, because it was so shocking. And he was a guy that I definitely had, I revered. I revered who he was. Just there was reverence. That's the word I'm trying to get. There was reverence for him. So, and I especially at that point in my life was very, there was a lot of rule-based things inside of me as far as how we manage ourselves and talk and things like that. And I said, Donovan, I just don't know what to do. I don't know what my future looks like. I don't know what God wants for me. I'm just have so much anxiety about this. And he looks at me and he says, Justin. And I go, what? He pauses for a second. He goes, just fucking do something.
I've never heard this story before.
And it shook me to the core. First off, because of the language he used.
Totally.
I was like, oh my God, did Donovan just use that word? And second off, because he was literally saying, just do something. And he was like, it is not the end of the world. Just make a decision. You are young enough that you will have thousands of decisions that you get to make and you get to readjust along the way. Just effing make a decision. And I was like, okay, Donovan. But that started shaking me. That was the point that started shaking me. And I started examining my life saying, how have I been living? Everything I've been doing, I'm not making any decisions.
You're literally paralyzed out of fear.
Yes. Down to like, what clothes should I wear? What should I buy? How am I?
It ends up, I've seen that before, like a paranoia Christianity version of it. And where everything becomes high stakes. Yeah. And I think that a lot of religions have things like that.
Absolutely.
The idea that if you break one of their rules,
it's the laws or commandments that are inside of whatever structure.
I mean, because literally some religions will stone you if you break one of their rules.
Totally, which makes sense that people are like, nah, people have been stoned up in here.
Totally, but a lot of, I think in Christianity, I think a lot of people, because I remember even the idea about, I've counseled so many people through choosing a spouse, right? And they believe, well, if this is, they get stuck on the decision and they're like, well, if God wants this, then the marriage will be good. And if God doesn't want this, then the marriage will be bad. And all of that takes away our free will.
And our personal power.
Yeah. Our ability to partner with creating the life we want. Yeah. Like, I actually believe God made us powerful.
Yeah.
So that we could change our beliefs, change our habits, change our life. Like, I honestly believe, now there would have been lots of people I wouldn't have enjoyed being married to.
Totally.
But I honestly believe.
Am I one of those people?
Yeah. Just kidding. I like you.
I know.
You are one of the people that I feel the most happy I'm married. Sorry, my brain just stopped. That wasn't a real sentence. You are one of the people I feel happy I'm married. But I think I could have, like, if I would have married any of my ex-boyfriends, I could have learned how to have a good marriage.
Yeah.
With any of them.
Yeah.
Like, there's universal emotional health tools. You can learn how to bond. You can learn how to communicate. You can learn intimacy. You can learn that with anyone.
True.
And now I'm not saying, like, there's, if people are abusive or if they don't want to learn, like, I'm not trying to trap people in that. I'm just saying you're powerful.
There's potential for growth and development and anything. And if there's a situation where someone's not, and you realize that they don't have the capacity to do that, you get to become powerful.
To make choices.
Mm-hmm. And to change who you are and stuff like that. So what I started learning from that season for me personally was that I'm going to just have to begin to make decisions, and I'm going to have to begin to trust that there's grace and resolution for my decisions. Now,
and to accept sometimes you're going to make the wrong one.
Absolutely.
Actually, I don't even believe that.
I think
the more painful one.
Yeah, the one that doesn't feel ideal.
Yeah.
I realized, like, that was not an ideal decision that I just made there.
Totally.
Well, how do I clean that mess up?
Yes.
And I think that, again, that's part of humanity, is that we are learning and growing and developing, and we actually stunt our development process when we're paralyzed in fear to not make decisions.
Yeah. Now, I think that there's two people groups that I'd like to talk to in this.
You mean
podcast.
The other end of the spectrum?
Yeah.
The people in their 40s that still don't use their thought process. Like, oh, whatever.
Yeah. So there's people who feel so much pressure, they get paralyzed. They never actually make decisions, or it takes years and years and years, or every decision causes them an anxiety attack.
Yeah.
Or ulcer. And then there's the other people who, on the other extreme, which don't think about decisions at all.
Yeah, the
completely impulsive.
The byproduct of their decision making.
Yeah.
Like, should I really buy this car when we're already, $50,000 in debt?
Totally. It's fun.
Put it on credit.
Totally.
This won't ever catch me.
Yes. And I will say that there needs to be compassion even for people like that, because oftentimes people who can't imagine consequences either have like some wiring issues in like ADHD. Mm-hmm. There's a hard time the impulsivity in your brain is so high.
Right.
Or there's also sometimes people get stuck in development. They had a childhood trauma or they have pain, and they're actually stuck in the part of their brain that hasn't formed the ability to create consequences.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean it's okay to not learn those. It means we need to have compassion on people who are like that and understand there's probably a real reason, and then call them to a standard of, you're going to have to learn and grow.
Lovingly challenge those people and be like, hey, do you actually realize that these set of decisions are very destructive in the way that you're relating? And let's look at that and grow together.
And I see this happen a lot, like there's, we'll call it in dating. I see the guy who like overanalyzes and never asks the girl out, or the guy who like doesn't even think if he likes a girl and is on a date with 5 of them and hasn't even thought about what he thinks about it. Mm-hmm. And we think the balance is somewhere in the in between of like being able to think about it and not get lost in fear.
Yeah, I think that when you extracted my high stakes situation, I actually did a really good job about playing the movie out.
Oh, this is one of the life skills I wish I could give people. Like I could extract it from you and give it to people.
But it had to come through the lens of a relationship with wisdom. And a lot of times it's like, what is wisdom? I don't know what wisdom is, but I know that paralyzed, anxiety-driven fear, panic in my soul is not going to lead me to a decision with wisdom.
No.
And just ignoring the potential outcomes isn't going to lead me down a journey to wisdom.
And that's what some people do. They feel so panicked that they just ignore all of the red flags or how it could create chaos.
Absolutely. So part of it was me going on a journey of just asking, all right, what does wisdom look like? What does wisdom feel like internally? And so there's levels of stuff that are like gut checks. I learned how to, and this is what you opened up about, and I want you to get into it, is there's something about learning about our intuitive self and knowing our value system. Because when I know my value system, I can easily ask, does this decision align with my value system? And does my gut feel good about it? And there's different levels of when I need to check in on those checks. I walk into a store and go, do I want to buy that? Well, is it a reasonable price that isn't going to break me? Sure. Not a big deal. Going to buy it, move on with life. It's not a high stakes situation inside of it. But when it comes to buying a home, a major purchase that you're tied to, I am looking internally like, this could cost me a lot long term. Is this something that I could resell? Could I get out of this? I'm asking practical questions about, is this a good financial decision from a logic standpoint, but also then the gut standpoint.
Yeah, before we get into the gut, though, I'd like you to talk a little bit more about what playing the movie out looks like. Like maybe give a couple. I know, like when we were dating, I remember there was multiple times where you played out, if we don't break up, then this is what will keep happening.
Well, yeah, I saw that. Like that's a great conversation. So when we were in kind of the pseudo dating process, we weren't exactly dating, but we were best friends.
Yeah,
and it felt like we're moving into dating. Inside of me, I'm like, I can't make a decision on whether or not, like, I want to be with her, but something inside of me keeps having a resistance, right? And I started empathetically putting myself in your shoes and asking the question, what will this do to this other human being in the long run, potentially, of this relationship?
For her to be around me, but me not be able to commit.
What's the message that could be sent now and could be sent if we do this for another year, another 6 months? And I started saying, well, if I'm in her shoes, I would start thinking that I really don't matter. I'm loved, but there's something flawed inside of me, that I can't trust his ability to make decisions because he's wishy-washy. It could make your emotions go up and down consistently of I'm wanted, I'm not wanted, I'm wanted, I'm not wanted, which could cause even more anxiety in the relationship and even cause further detriment anyways long-term down the road if there isn't some form of stability inside of this.
Yeah.
And so inside of me, I was like, all right, to love this person well, as I've walked out a process in my head of potentially what this behavior consistently walked out could do, I want to actually protect them. And the only way to really protect them is to get out of selfishness, because then there's a decision of like, but if I let this go and cut this off,
what if it never works out?
What if it never works out? But the idea of what if this never works out was selfish.
Right.
It wasn't other-centered love. It was self-centered love. It was, if I were to be like, no, but I don't want to let her go because I'll lose the feelings that I have of what I'm getting out of this relationship, that's selfish. So part of my decision-making and wisdom-making came down to also the conversation about love, right?
Right.
So the foundation is practically, what does love practically look like, especially in the context of other-centered love when you're loving someone else well? And then inside of it, my decision started being made, hey, to love her really well, I'm actually needing to think about how this is affecting her. And I'm going to have to cut this off and tell her we're not going to be together. And I knew that I had to shut it down in a way that we'll never be together, so you could quit playing out the movie in your head of the fantasy of what our life would be.
Yeah.
And release yourself from it and go on a journey.
And you saw, like, we'll just get more and more toxic. and
Yes.
it'll get more and more frustrating.
Yes.
And it's the same thing of like, there's this guy that I know who was with this girl and he wasn't committed to her, and she really wanted him to buy her a cat, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and as just like a gift or whatever. But he was playing out in his head, if I buy you a cat, it will send a message to you. And then every time you see the cat, you'll remember me, and it will keep you connected to me. Because I don't know if we're going to end up together, and I'm not in a place of commitment. And so I'm looking at how this is going to play out, and I'm not ready to commit to that yet. So I'm not going to.
Right.
But it's the idea, and I don't know why we just use two dating ones, because it's everything. It's like, oh, if I quit my job, it will mean that I have to use up all of my savings.
Right.
And it will mean that it might be stressful, or it might be
it could impact my future,
or my kids, or my and so it's always worth looking at what are the benefits to this decision. Like, oh, if I quit my job, my mental health's going to get better. I'm not going to feel crazy every day. I'm not going to be in hypervigilance every day. I just walked somebody through this actual decision. There's this girl that I know. She has a savings account. She didn't want to use it, but her job is an abusive situation. Like, her actual boss is abusive. He rages, he throws things, he fires people without knowing, and he has a crush on her, and so is also hitting on her on a regular basis, and that hits all of her trauma buttons. And so when she's looking at the decision, she's looking at all of the consequences, and you need to be able to look at both sides. Most of the time people only look at their fear side. So she was only looking at the, like, I need to make money and this is a good job. I'm looking at how much is it going to cost you if you go into PTSD being around this long term? How much is that going to affect you? Like, will you actually save more money by quitting this job, using your savings for a while you find a new job, and then and having peace in your life? Like, what if you stay in this job, but it causes you so much pain that then you have to stop working anyway?
Totally.
And so I'm always looking at both sides of a scenario. And then with the belief that things are redeemable. So I'm like, this decision isn't going to break the rest of your life. Like, I always think about The Adjustment Bureau, that movie. I loved it so much, where Matt Damon is like running. There's like, at the end of the book, you see that he makes a decision that then makes it so that there's 20 other pathways of decisions that could get him to different options. And I think I feel that way in my own life. I'm like, well, if I make this decision, it just means 20 other decisions open up for me that are good.
I think that one of the things...
Well, can I finish? So,
okay.
So she ended up deciding to quit her job. And as soon as she decided to quit her job, all these other job opportunities came in. But I'm saying that's the belief system of, I'm going to be okay quitting my job. But she did need to weigh it. Like, some people wouldn't even weigh. They just quit their job. And they're not paying attention to what the consequences would be. Some people are so responsible. You need to know, are you the over responsible person that takes too long to make decisions and you need to take off all of the pressure? Or are you the person listening that actually never thinks through how it will cost you or the people around you? You quit the job and just expect that your parents will let you live with them, and you're not thinking about anyone else in the process. Like, you need to figure out where you're at on that spectrum so that you can bring yourself into balance, because balance is where health is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when it comes to decision making, people want a lot of black and white rules, like anything else, because they want to know, like,
what is good, what is bad,
what is right, what is wrong, all of that type of stuff.
And people often believe there is a right and a wrong.
Totally.
And sometimes there is. Like,
totally.
You know, if you murder that person, it's a wrong decision.
You think so?
Well, probably some situations it's still probably a right decision. Like, if somebody's going to try to kill me and you kill them in the midst of that,
it's reasonable.
Yeah.
It's totally reasonable.
So there's a lot of nuance to right and wrong.
That's right. And that's, again, that the whole idea is that there's nuance to decision making. And I think that one of the things is this invitation to relationship. So when I have relationship with my creator, first and foremost, and I mean, that's just for me personally, there is something about my decision making that no longer is black and white. Like normally this is what I do and this makes sense. But then I feel this nudge inside of me that says, this is going to violate all the rules that I have built, even my value systems, but something inside of me says, yes,
it's still right.
It's still right. Make this decision over here.
And you're talking about the balance of logic and gut.
Absolutely.
Like you have to have both.
Yep. And people want to throw out one or the other, right? And they're like, yeah, I should just follow my gut because rules got me nowhere. Or rules are the only thing that keep you safe. You're an idiot if you follow your gut. I always make bad decisions.
Yeah.
So it really...
Most people have a judgment on one or the other.
Yeah, they don't have a respect for both. And that's something that for me, I found a really cool balance of, is a respect for both my intellect and my gut. And I can't tell anyone when to use one or the other. It's just, I know that my gut will not be available suddenly, and all I feel is anxiety. And I go to my logic, and my logic says, yeah, but Justin, here's some clear logic that you can make to get out of this. And I go, okay, I'm going to follow that right now. And there's other times when I've made decisions, utterly zero logic to why I'm doing this, but my gut says, say yes and jump. Yes. I remember that when I left my job out in Hollywood and I was working on a film set, and I felt like my gut was like, you can stay here and there'll be grace with the job that you're working on and all these cool things will unfold. Or you can quit and move back to Montana and work for your father for the entire summer and walk away from all of this. And my gut felt this longing to jump in and leave my work in LA. But it's what completely changed the trajectory of my life for all the best reasons, but also had to let go of a lot of my dreams that I had, my youthful dreams of what I thought my life was going to look like. But it literally led me down a wild path that eventually landed with you.
Aww. Yeah, I mean, I would say...
in all of that, you know, even though it was a bad decision, it's still being...
You're so funny. I was thinking this, like, I look back and most of the decisions we made that weren't logical, I have like a string of illogical decisions we made. But I'd like to say they're like peppered in. Like every few years I've made a decision that goes against my logic. Yeah. But then I make a lot of logical decisions in between that. So it's not just a lifestyle. And I see that happen. People do extremes where they don't listen to logic ever. And they're like, don't be an adult and don't think through things. And so their life just becomes chaos and stays in chaos. And then I see the other side where people never follow that. But every illogical decision, not every, but so many of the major life ones that we've made have been illogical to us at the time. Yes. And have been the exact thing that got us to the exact place that we needed to go.
And I could feel a yes deep in my gut. And then I decided I'm going to trust and I'm going to believe that if I just effing make a decision here, that even if I was wrong in my deepest gut place, but I had pure intent, that there's grace to clean up this mess and to help rebuild whatever felt like it got torn down. Yeah. And I think the key was a heart posture. Yeah. None of it's been flippant. I don't think my rules or not rules. I don't think my decisions have ever been flippant. They've had a purity of heart, wanting to do right by myself and by others from a foundation of loving well and wanting to see my life beautifully unfold.
Yeah. And faith oftentimes looks illogical. Like, and not just faith in God, I just mean faith in, like, I believe I'm going to run after this dream and see it. I mean, like, in 2008, when the economy crashed, we spent our whole savings.
Yeah. Everything, and quit our jobs completely.
And traveled to the US and spent our savings, which I think is so dumb.
Which that would be like in 2020 when the entire economy was failing and COVID hit, to be like, I have a steady job that's going to pay me through all of this, but I'm going to just quit it because it feels right in my gut.
Totally.
Like, who in their adult logic mind says that's a good idea?
Yes. But I honestly think it saved our marriage. Totally. I think it was the only way that we were going to make it. So, so there is that. I keep having this thought come to me of this story in my life, which is such a random story, but there was this season in my life where I think I must not have been working in this specific moment. And I met this guy, and we ended up doing a road trip. We were dated. It wasn't just like a stranger. I met this guy. We went on a road trip
at a bus stop.
Yeah. No. I met this guy, and we started dating. We went on this road trip, and I didn't have money, and I just was like, I'm just going to buy whatever I need to buy. It'll work out. And so sometimes that illogical faith has worked really well for me. There's a lot of situations where it's worked really well. And so I bought like whatever I needed at wherever we went and didn't let him pay for too much. And at the end of that season was in debt. It's a crazy thought.
Wait, you're in debt?
I know, crazy. I was not making money, but spending it, and it put me in debt. And I remember, like, I was so surprised that I went into debt. I know that sounds funny, but like so many seasons had worked out for me
where debt didn't happen.
Yeah. And so then I remember, this is so funny, but I went to this store. It was a jewelry store. I loved jewelry, and it was a going out of business sale. And this ring was 70% off, and I loved it so much, and it was so cheap. And I like wanted to buy it. Now I'm already in debt, but I was like, but when will this ever happen again? And this is so great. And because it's interesting, because my gut sometimes says yes, and my gut sometimes says no. And I could just feel this no in my gut. And I would recommend to everybody listening out there, if you don't hear a no, then you need to start intentionally asking your gut to tell you no on things. If you don't hear a yes, you need to intentionally start asking your gut to tell you yes on things.
Why don't I have a myriad of things down here?
Yeah. I know the no. I've heard it so many times in my life. Like, no, even though this sounds fun, like, people need to know that restriction on decisions is oftentimes a gift.
It's such a good gift.
A no means there's a different yes. Like, I have learned not to hate the no because I feel like it protects me. And anyway, so I felt like, no, don't buy the ring. I was devastated about it. I was devastated about being in debt. I mean, I was in debt. It took me a couple of years to pay that season off. And I remember after that season being like, you know what? I actually don't think that was my gut that told me to spend money. I actually think that was my codependency.
Where I didn't want to
want to let the guy buy me stuff. I felt out of control and powerless. I wanted to be generous and have things. And I was like, I actually think that wasn't my gut. I think that was my dysfunction. And I know what happens is most people experience this. They thought they were making a decision out of pure intentions. Later, they look back and they see. And to me, that didn't make me break trust with myself. That made me be like, because eventually I paid off the debt.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a huge deal.
Was not the end of the world.
Was not the end of the world. And so I looked back and I thought, this is helping me learn. Yes. It's helping me learn. So now when I have that feeling, I can recognize that feeling a little bit better. Now when I have that feeling of, I think I should do this, I can't tell you, I had to go through a time because I was so generous to a fault. I did go through a time where I had to ask God, should I give money to this person or not? Now, other people need to learn how to be generous.
Right. There's always the flip, both sides of the coin, right?
But I'm looking at how do I balance whatever angle I'm coming from. And I came from an angle where my mom literally gave so much she was in debt.
Gave everything away.
She was $12,000 in debt and giving away crazy. No, she was like 100,000. She was very, very in debt. I don't know what the numbers I threw out are not real numbers. I don't know. She was lots in debt.
She had a lot of debt there.
Yes. Well, because I'm trying to go through the numbers and add them all up, but regardless. And she was just giving money away left and right to anybody who needed it. And so I came from that culture. And so I remember having to learn the no in my gut.
Yeah.
So I would think, I want to give money to this person. And then I'd be like, is this my gut telling me to give money or just compassion?
Or codependency.
And I started having a lot of no's, like, this is actually codependency. I'm actually wanting to give to you out of this fear or out of protecting myself or out of wanting you to like me or out of wanting to feel powerful and in control. And so part of decision making is that you're going to make decisions and look back and be like, oh, I don't know that was the decision that I should have made. And you don't have to have shame. You can actually feel like it's an education. Our friend Brian Ellis, who I love, he does the Fail Journal podcast. He's so great. And he's like, it can either traumatize you or educate you. Mm-hmm. Like failure can be your best teacher. Mm-hmm. And it can actually throw you forward. Your view on failure, your view on your past mistakes actually determine your future.
Yeah.
And so if you begin to see it not as this is horrible, but like, no, this is powerful, then you can start to learn your own internal voice. Yeah. And some people have never learned their internal voice. Like some people had parents who made every decision for them, and they never have learned to trust their voice, or people that were really controlling in their lives. And it takes time to learn it. And you're going to get some things really right.
Yeah.
And you're going to get some things really wrong.
And I think that that's something that you're pointing out there, Rich, which is really, you need to know yourself.
Yeah.
And you can't just make that happen overnight.
Yeah.
Knowing yourself is a life process. It's a journey of investigation. It's getting connected internally. It's letting yourself make decisions that don't work out well for you, to ask, why did I make that decision? What was my heart posture in it? Was it actually my gut? Was it my overly logicking the situation? And when it's not done through a value assessment, right? So when it's not judged, like, I'm bad for this, but if we remove that self-value assessment and judgment out of the circumstances, we can just logically look at it and go like, oh, was that helpful or not? Why did I make that decision? Oh, I made it because, I think I actually was scared that person would reject me if I didn't buy their meal every time I was with them. And I slowly drowned myself in debt at Chipotle.
That is actually such a realistic, I feel like you just crawled into my brain and described the truth of what happened. But the thing is that is like the compassion that comes from understanding.
Uh-huh. And so as we go in that journey of self-awareness and understanding, and we grow and we develop, we start to get, again, really in tune with our knower. I remember those first 5 years in LA.
Yeah.
Where I was getting in tune with my knower. And sometimes it was really taxing because all of my fear-based systems were at the surface, and I was having to look at them head on, and I was having to make mistakes, clean up mistakes, and it's okay. Like, I think what happens is character is developed in this process. You develop the character of compassion. You begin to develop the humility, the ability to forgive, because you're having to ask for forgiveness. Then you're having to, then you realize I need to forgive people. Like you humanize yourself in this process. Like when you start connecting in with decision making and not being so robotic about it, or not being so loose with it, all of a sudden you have to connect into your humanity.
Yeah. I love that. I also was thinking about this very big concept that I spent my whole life trying to understand, which is fear versus wisdom.
Yeah. I
remember as a kid, adults would always tell me things that felt like it was popping the balloons of everything I believed was possible. And it felt like fear all the time. And the older I've gotten, I understand how adults get fear-minded, because you see so many things not work out, and you want to protect people from pain. Right. And so you want to tell them all the reasons it won't work out and all the reasons. And it's one of the reasons I like being tied to younger people, is because you can become kind of an a-hole as you grow up when you see pain. But youth still has that childlike belief and that wonder. And like we talked about Brian Ellis on this a little bit ago. He is the founder, him and his friend Ben co-founded the Adventure Challenge. But he had this idea on it to start this company that no investor believed in. Yeah,
everyone thought he was an idiot, and he was like, this won't make much money, and tried to protect him from himself.
Yeah, and in 3 years, it's like an $80 million company or something. I don't know the exact numbers, but it is like wildly successful.
Yeah.
I made up those numbers. So just make up whatever number sounds wildly successful to you and we'll all just call it good. But the concept is his belief that didn't have wisdom, what some people would say wisdom, he was like spending all of his money making this thing that nobody believed in.
The scratch off book game.
Yes. And so there is, and then it was paid off. And then they made a lot of risks that a lot of people would have been scared to make. And that paid off.
Yeah.
And so it just feels like this, but then there's other people on the other side
that get into
that
things
make stupid decision after stupid decision. And they just say it's because it's their knower.
Yeah.
And they never get out of chaos.
So again, the real question is there redemption?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is there grace?
Yes. Can you learn?
Mm-hmm. And is there an invitation to relationship? Both with yourself and with a creator that wants to participate inside of your story. The thing that's been so relieving and empowering for me is that I look at the end goal, because I think that a lot of people, decisions oftentimes don't have an end goal in mind, or they have an intense end goal. And what I mean by it is, like, to the person who doesn't really pay attention to how the consequences, the cause and effect of their decisions, oftentimes they just live through life without the idea that there is an end goal of relationship, of a creator, of answering for our decisions at all inside of them. And they're just like, oh, whatever, it just happens, it happens. There's other people that when they think of the end goal in mind, they think that there's
the end goal is in, like, what happens after death?
Yeah, what happens after death, and also what is the purpose of this life?
Right. What is the purpose of life?
So some of them that are paralyzed in fear decisions, oftentimes, like, the purpose is to make a bunch of money, put it in my back pocket, and make sure I'm safe and okay at the end of the day when I've retired and things like that, rather than this idea that there's a good dad involved inside of your story. And to me, I'll kind of say this to lock it all together. When I look at my earth goal is to develop as a human being and to have the manifestation.
I love that, my earth goal. That's cute. What's my earth goal?
Is to have the manifestation of the knowledge of unconditional love to be made manifest inside of me, right? That it starts developing. Unconditional love starts being developed inside of me in a way that, like, changes the way that I relate to myself and the world around me. And that the development of something inside of me is the thing that I take with me, right? And so ultimately in all these decision makings, I'm like, even if at the end of the day I make poor financial decisions and I end this life broke, it didn't matter, because if I end this life rich, it still stays here. And none of it comes with me. So when I look at that, then our decision making goes, okay, if I messed my whole life up, if I missed my calling that I thought that I had inside of my head, or the dream that was inside of me, or went through multiple marriages that didn't work out, the question becomes, did I learn? Did I grow? Did I heal? Did I love? Did I impart what was happening inside of me? And do I have something that I'm actually taking with me? And that really comes into an eternal perspective.
Yeah.
Right? It's the idea that there's something bigger than this moment. And there's something that I do get to take with me that's both inside of me and what I impart inside of other people's lives.
Yeah.
Along the way. So
I think another thing important before we wrap up is just, I think about my mom. She had an affair on my dad when I was 2, and it dramatically affected everything.
Yeah.
Affected her health and her life and her emotional, mental stability, and affected the culture I grew up in, and I think there's a lot of people who've made decisions like that, and they have seen the consequences.
And consequences.
They've seen it. And it's really important to forgive yourself for mistakes that you have made. Even if you made them knowing that it was a bad choice.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of times I've made bad choices in the past. I remember a while ago, like, I knew I was choosing to be in a codependent relationship, and I just still chose it. Not because but I literally knew, like, I was in so much trauma from things that had happened. I was like, normal, healthy me knows how to say no to this.
Right.
But traumatized, barely surviving me just needs a crumb of anything.
Yeah.
And I just remember like that feeling and just like asking like, God, can you help me make better decisions?
Right.
Like, I know this isn't the decision I want to be making. Can you help me make better decisions? Can you help heal my heart? And can you protect me while I don't have the capacity to be making good decisions? And I would talk to him about that every day. And it was very humbling to be like, I need help. I'm not healthy.
Yeah.
And then I think there's also, and then God was very involved and just completely wrapped that situation up really well and protected me and helped move it from codependency into a healthy relationship. And I say God because like natural events that were like crazy life events happened in a way that really settled everything. And so I look at that and I'm like, you have to have grace for yourself. And some of you need to look back on the decisions you're so angry at yourself for making, and you need to find compassion. Like, what was the brokenness inside of you that was pulling you towards that? Mm-hmm. And is there anything you need to clean up from that mess?
Yeah.
Is there anything that actually, like Justin's mom, the more she engaged you, the more her shame broke.
Yeah.
The more she talked through things about raising you, the more empowered she became.
Yeah.
And so I think it's never too late to clean up old decisions.
Yeah.
And by that, you need to forgive yourself, because if you don't forgive yourself, what will happen is you'll start to believe I make bad decisions. And when we believe that, we follow that.
Yep. And when we don't forgive ourselves, we can't actually healthily clean up our messy decisions, which therefore we cannot actually get the healing that we need. Mm-hmm. Again, even when my mom came to me and went through the process of starting to forgive herself, then she could come apologize and take ownership. Mm-hmm. And in doing so, it started repairing things that beyond our relationship. It started repairing things inside of her and how she saw herself in it. So it's a really powerful thing. So I think, to end this, to those people out there that are just making wild decisions and not considering the realities of love as your foundation of like, actually, how is this loving decisions, and are my decisions actually impacting myself and other people around me that's really detrimental consistently? Are they done flippantly? And
I think it's important to look at love for other people and for yourself both. Mm-hmm. Because I know so many people that look at how will this impact other people, but they're not counting how it will impact them. So
and vice versa. They think only how it'll impact me and not how it'll impact others.
And those two things, loving other people and loving yourself, are meant to balance each other.
Yep.
And so like, I know this woman in this marriage that had to make a decision to set a boundary. She thought that would hurt the person, but we both knew it would kill her soul to not make the boundary.
Right.
And so killing your own. So it's this balance of how do I love both me and the people around me?
Yeah. So for those of you that have made a lot of decisions just off the cuff, not thinking about other people, it's really a good time to learn how to love yourself, pause, reflect, connect, and start adjusting how you're making those decisions rather than just being so flippant and free with them. And for those of you that are still paralyzed in decisions and can't make any, I just say to you, in the famous words of Donovan, just fucking do something.
Well, one thing that I was going to say is an adage I heard in the past that really helped me because I could get paralyzed was momentum is easier to steer once it's started. Like, right. I think about a ball rolling. They're like, just freaking start pushing the ball. Like, start moving. Like, if you're like, I don't know what kind of job that I should get, like, just start going on job interviews and start trying different things and then start working. Once you're working, you can still be looking for other jobs and different ideas and careers. Like, the idea is once you start movement, it's easier to turn it.
Totally.
Than like just sitting like a duck.
It's great. That's great. Decisions. Get out there. Make your decisions.
Make some decisions.
Make some decisions today. Don't blow up toilets. It's a bad idea.
Also, if you need compassion for yourself, we do have the Compassion Project. We have Living Fully Alive coming up next year. And something I really want people to know about is we want to start taking your suggestions for the podcast.
Yeah.
So if you go to justinandabby.com, that's justinandabi.com, there is a place for the Connected Life where you can write in your suggestions, what you want to hear about on our podcast. We want to start, this is a year we want to start, like, give to the fans what they want.
Yeah, you can have it. Whatever you want, just write it in and maybe you'll get it.
Maybe.
Hey, remember to rate, review, subscribe, and share. Go to iTunes. Every time you rate and review, it's a really big deal for us. It's nice to have that out there. It promotes the podcast. So goodbye.